Okay, and we're live. So this is Anna Laura Brown from Salt Lake City, Utah, and we have Shannon Cherry from
San Francisco Bay Area.
San Francisco Bay Area. And the two of us are online, and we are going to do a chat about some business as well as life balance, different things like that. So, Shannon, why don't you start out by just telling us about who you are?
Oh, that's a big, broad question. I was just asked to write a short bio of myself, and I said, how do you make something when you've lived 45 years and done so many different things in 45 years? How do you make that compact? Uh, Ultimately, it comes down to just a few hats that I wear. I'm a mom. I own my own business. I'm a wife. I'm a daughter. And I like to drink wine. I guess that sums it all up.
Okay, there you go. So, how did you get started doing your business?
Well, my business is in public relations and marketing. I do a lot of coaching around that. I started off in college as a TV reporter and anchor at my local television station. I had an internship there, and while in college, a breaking news story happened right near my college, and the place where I worked was about 3 hours away. So basically, they handed me a camera and said, "Go cover this." After I had interned with them, because I was right there in the middle of it. It was really fun stuff. It was a serial rapist, murderer person. Uh,
Oh
but
my,
it was
yeah.
happening. It was happening right near my college campus. So and it was close enough that it was making national, well, state and national news, and they just said start covering it, which I did, and then they hired me full time. So on weekends, I was driving from going to college during the week, and on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, working at the television station, as well as covering this news story for about 8 to 10 months, sending them things through other television stations. So that's how I started, and then I went into public relations, and I worked in that for oh about 10 years, and then finally started my own business doing it as well.
So, is that pretty much exclusively what you do for your own business then?
Yes, I mean pretty much I am a PR and marketing consultant, and I coach people on how to do it or do it for them.
Cool. So, why did you decide to do it yourself instead of working in the corporate world, shall we say?
I think everybody has a story like this somewhere down the line. I started because I had a boss who was a jerk. I had I mean, you're laughing because we all have had that boss.
Yeah.
Maybe the same person. Well, he got hit. But what happened for me was I had just got married, and and at the time I just got married, I got hired for this new PR job at a brand new PR firm, um, and the owner of the company, had this philosophy where he believed in tormenting people using fear to get them to do work. He called people names, he intimidated them, he harassed them in order to get the best amount of work. Now, he didn't bother me that much because I was doing pretty well, but I guess he decided it was time to put me in my place after 3 months. And after getting a client on Good Morning America, he called me into his office. The client was sitting there, and I was ready for my big accolades. I mean, how it was a stupid story. I don't know how I lucked out to get it such national coverage. And what ended up happening was he berated me, called me the C word, which we won't say. I'm sure this is a PG-13 broadcast, as well as retarded and every swear word in the book, saying Good Morning America wasn't good enough. I should have gotten on all three major networks. Back then, there was only three major networks, news networks: Today Show, CBS This Morning, and Good Morning America. So they were pretty he was screaming and yelling at me, and I literally walked out the door. He followed me, screaming and yelling. I went, picked up my purse, picked up the plant that I had on my desk, and walked out the door with no plan. I called my husband from my car and told him what I had done, thinking, oh my gosh, I just got married. We're about to buy a house. How is this all going to happen? And he said, meet me for lunch. I met him for lunch, and there I am crying into my little lunch and saying, I can't, what am I going to do? And he handed me my first domain name and said, you're going to create your own firm on your own terms and show him what a jerk, he said something else, but what a jerk this guy is, and that you don't have to do it that way in order to be successful.
So you've been on your own ever since then?
Yep.
Sweet. And it sounds like it's working out pretty well for you then.
So far, so good. 12 years, still running, so can't complain.
Awesome. So, let's shift focus a little bit. I know you didn't mention this when you talked about yourself, but you've told me already, and it's on your website and other things too, that you have twin daughters that are on varying degrees of the autism spectrum.
I do.
What do you find to be your biggest challenge as a mom of twins with autism while running a business?
Patience. Patience. My daughters are in different aspects of the spectrum, and because it's funny, I think, I'm like, okay, I figured this part out about what's going on with them. One of them doesn't communicate well. So I think, okay, I figured this out. And all of a sudden, she does a 180, and I don't know what's going on again. And trying to work those things out, that's the hardest thing. And just being patient and knowing that my children are brilliant. They know they just have difficulty relating to some of the aspects of the world I've created for them. So I just trying to figure it out and negotiate those waters so they stay in my world and not escape into their own worlds.
Yeah, good. So they're old enough to be in school. So do you pretty much just run your business while they're in school and you don't try to do it while they're home?
They are in school for most of it, and yes, pretty much I work when they are not here. Summer brings a lot of challenges. Currently, they started summer school today, which is a half day, not a full day. So my time is limited, and summer school only lasts for weeks. So I've had to plan other things to do for the rest of the summer with them, like they're going to a camp, they're doing some other things. But yes, my time is probably, on average, I work about 15 to 20 hours a week, and now it's probably about 10. And you have to know that, and part of doing that is, and actually this is good for kids on the spectrum, is being a good planner and knowing what's coming up next in your business and planning for that and making sure it happens. That way I can plan the rest of the day and be with them. Doesn't always work out perfectly, but that's what it does.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and one of the main reasons I asked that is that from my end, working in the health end, I have worked quite a bit with parents that have kids on the spectrum, and a lot of them just kind of think they can't even do their own business or that they can't even do anything for themselves hardly. And, here you are, you're one of the many that are out there that are proving that, yeah, it actually can be done if you plan ahead.
It's all about the plan. I mean, kids on the spectrum, as you know, like to have a plan. It's not spontaneity is like the devil to them. I mean, it really is a difficult. Especially for my other daughter who can communicate more, she does not know what's going to happen on a time schedule. So if that time schedule really alters a lot, it becomes difficult for her. So what I've tried to do is just keep a pretty good schedule, and when I work, and when I can't, I can't, and I'm okay with that. The other thing is my business is part of my life versus my business is my life. It's one aspect of what I do every day.
Yeah. Good point. And it's always a good idea to be well planned ahead anyway in business. So, if anything, that probably serves to your advantage that you have to do it.
It does. It also keeps me very focused because then I'm not on this strange tangent saying, oh, I'd like to try this, or I want to do podcasting, or oh, I'm going to do this next week. I think the biggest fault most business owners make is they don't have a plan. They don't know what next week is going to look like, let alone, or next month, or 6 months from now. I have a basic plan I follow every month of the year. And I say basic because it can be altered based on timing or something that comes up or inspiration. But it follows a basic schedule, and all my focus is on that. So the hours I do spend are actually quite productive as a result, instead of saying, oh, I'll just go on Facebook for a couple hours and see what's going on. My Facebook time is part of my marketing time, and I only have a few minutes at a time to do it. And so I make it very productive and always have a goal in mind for everything I do.
Yeah, that's really good. Really, really good advice, period, regardless of whether you have kids that you have to take care of or anything. Definitely, I think that's big. Because I know I've fallen into that trap before where I'm just kind of all over the place and it's like, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And I'm finding with the Listapalooza with PJ Van Hol, that's one disadvantage to listening to all these calls, is that you're getting so many different ideas about things that we could be doing for list building that it's tempting to just jump all over the place.
Exactly. I mean, I'll be speaking on that as well in a few weeks. And what's really interesting about that is what I tell people to do is ideas are like popcorn. Right? So they pop, 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 pop everywhere. And as much as you can have a big bucket of popcorn, it is, after a while, it's not that good at, So what you want to do is take your ideas. So you decide, okay, I'm going to do a list building giveaway. So you're going to just write that on a sheet of paper, crumple it up, and put it away. I mean, I literally crumple it up like it looks like a piece of popcorn and put it away for a week. Any other ideas you get, put it in that box. At the end of the week, dump out the box. And then go through, open each one up again, and decide which ones are still valid. Which ones still appeal to you? Because the idea of, hearing a whole bunch of ideas and a whole bunch of calls is you want to do them all, and frankly, you can't. And you have to find the ones that work for you. So look at them all, decide which ones are good, discard the rest. Then I want you to crumple them up again and put them away for another week. 2 weeks, if even better. If in 1 to 2 weeks these are still good ideas and you want to implement, it means go for it. Otherwise, you were just kind of on that exciting bandwagon because it just sounded exciting at the time. So you can kind of filter out the ideas that aren't going to serve you well just by putting them on a shelf somewhere for a little bit.
Absolutely, yep. I definitely think that's a really good idea, for sure. And I find mind mapping can help as well, too. Do you use some kind of a mind map thing?
I'm not a mind map person. I find it, this will show you that where my autism traits come out, I'm not diagnosed. That's my own self-craziness. But to me, they look way too chaotic. They're not organized enough. So I'm a list person more than a mind map person. I know a lot of people use mind maps, and some people argue that creating a list is a type of mind map, but my lists are very organized, so I don't know if it's. I don't know if I've tried mind maps. They just seem very chaotic to me, and it's not how I think. I kind of think literally, laterally versus, okay, this idea can go here, here, here. It's not how I think. So.
Interesting, yeah, because I guess for me, I find mind maps to be more organizing because the way I do it, and I guess there's several different ways to do the mind maps. But for example, like I'll do one that focuses only on ways that I'm going to increase traffic or income for my blog. So to me, that ends up being pretty organized because all of the ideas are related to that one thing. So I don't do mind maps that include all the different ways that I could be list building or all the different things that I could spend money on or all the different ways to come up with new products or whatever. I focus only on one thing on the mind map. And so, for me, I just find it to be helpful. But, yeah, different ways to do it, I guess.
No, but you got to do what works for you. I wouldn't say people look at lists and freak out sometimes. I mean, because they're like, oh my God, this list is too long and it overwhelms them. So sometimes lists aren't a good thing for people either. For me, I know what works. I kind of just think that way, and I like some order in what I do.
Yep, absolutely. Yep. So, what who would you say is your ideal client?
My ideal client are is a woman. She is 35 to 45. She has been in business for a few years. Um, has learned some of those basics, like she knows the basics of list building, for example, but she wants to kick it up a notch. How can I make more of my list building efforts? Or how can I, or she knows about um, podcasting, but how can I make more from this? And what I do is I kind of like look in deep. What I say is I see the business trees in your I see the money trees in your business forest. So I look at what you're doing and then find other ways to make more money from it or to save you more time or both. Usually it's both. So it's one of the, so basically these women are looking for ways to say, I know how the basic list building. Now I'm looking for a new way to kick it up a notch and either boost it up more or make more money while I'm doing it. And for example, I teach people two different ways they can get paid to grow their list. That's just one example. So it's a whole bunch of different things, but that's what I do depending on what their business is. So if you're looking to monetize your blog more, we're going to look at ways to make that blog make money without adding more time to your bottom line. Because the thing is, you can work 70, 80, 90 hours a week. I can't. So I have learned how to pare down the hours while boosting up the income. And so I focus on those things. And it isn't necessarily raising your prices because that hardly ever works.
Interesting, yeah, because I know that's what a lot of other coaches will tell you is that you should raise your prices, and it's like, yeah, maybe. And I think sometimes people their prices are too low, so then that could be an issue. But
Right,
yeah,
but there's a difference when most people they tell you to think of number in mind, then double it, and that's how much you should be charging an hour or for a sponsored blog post or whatever it is. The fact of the matter is, it's what the market will bear. You can't just say I'm going to charge $300 an hour for coaching if your market is not going to bear that.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
the component that most people who tell you to just double your figure or add a zero to the end of your figure, that's the other technique, they don't account for who your target market is currently. If you want to change your target market, that's a whole different thing, but who it is currently, it's what the market could bear. I mean, you're going to go to a grocery store, and how much is a candy bar? It's 75 cents to a dollar. That's what a candy bar normally is. I mean, yes, I remember when they were 25 cents.
I know.
I remember those, but they're 75 cents to a dollar. It's what the market could bear. If you double the price on most candy bars, people aren't going to buy it as an impulse buy because candy bars at the grocery counter are an impulse buy. If they want something bigger and more expensive, they're going to go to a high quality candy shop or they're going to go down the candy aisle, which has more. But it's what the market will bear. Impulse buying, like a candy bar, can be is between a dollar or less. That's it. Anything else people aren't going to buy as an impulse.
Yep, definitely. Good point. So, this last question I came up with, because I think this is an interesting one, because I know people usually have different ideas about this, but yet it's a question that I know I get asked a lot, even though I'm not actually a social media coach. I have done it in the past and have been on social media for a long time, so people will ask me this question, is what's your favorite social media site and why?
I don't like any of them.
Oh, wow, okay.
I think they're a necessary evil for what I do for a living. I haven't found one that has just been perfect for me. Um, I learn them. I utilize them based on the target market that I'm appealing to. But for me, it's about business. It's not about as much connect. I look at it this way. The best example I can give is this. My 25-year high school reunion was maybe 3 years ago. 387? Yeah, maybe two. I graduated in 1987. But they one of the things they did was they wanted everyone to come to the Facebook page and get involved and then go to the reunion. For me, I'm like this. If I want to be social with people, I'm not going to do it on Facebook. I pick up the phone and I talk to people who I am still connected with. I really don't care about the rest of you because you never cared about me in the
Yeah.
past 25 years that I've graduated, and all of a sudden, because now you see I'm on Facebook, you want to connect with me, pick up the phone and talk to me. That is not how I do business. I mean that's not just not how I like connections with people. I don't like being in a group or dealing with people just because we should. So to me, it sounds very crass, but the people who are my friends, which social networking was really invented for,
Yeah.
they're connected with me in other ways, in ways that really do grow the relationship and keep it strong, versus social media is, to me, is a business tool.
Yeah. I know what you mean. Yeah, and I use social media as a business tool too, although I've actually found personally, I have what I call a love-hate relationship with Facebook because I have found that Facebook, more so than a lot of the other social media sites, it is a little bit easier to develop relationships with people. I find people are a little more open, they check it more frequently, they are, more willing to engage in conversation, and you can get to know them a little better than on some other sites. But at the same time, it can be a big time waster, and people can use it like a crutch where they won't even answer their phone or anything, and they just get in the habit of messaging you on Facebook all the time and not actually using the phone or other tools. So that can definitely be a downside to it for sure.
Exactly. The thing is, for business, you need to know where your target market hangs out. I mean, that's the bottom line. Not all your target, I mean, everyone thinks, well, everybody's on Facebook. They're not. They're
No.
not everybody's on. My parents aren't on Facebook. They're
Never
still.
mind.
I mean, my dad has a Facebook
Well,
thing,
yeah,
but
actually
he
my
doesn't
dad does
really. I
too,
mean,
but
the parents aren't on Facebook. So if you're looking for the baby boomer generation, yeah, there's some there, but you're hanging out in the wrong place. They're not. They did not grow up with computers. They did not grow up with any of it. I mean, my age, I barely grew up with computers. I was lucky because my dad worked for a company and we had a computer when I was in fourth grade in my home, which was very rare. So I did know computers, but for most people, I mean, the first Apple was not created until 1986.
yep.
Well, Mac, I should say now. Well, it was Apple too. I can't remember. But they really weren't created. So you have to go where your market is. So just being on Facebook isn't going to bring you business if your market isn't there. And just because you're on Facebook doesn't even mean your market will notice you. You have to figure that part out too.
Yep, absolutely. It's definitely more work than people think. It's like, okay, you really have to think on the marketing side, and a lot of people don't really think about it. They just kind of hear that tons of people are there and they just jump in.
Exactly. And for me, Facebook has made it more and more difficult to connect with your target market because they're limiting the views of your post.
Oh yeah.
So
Yep.
it's a lot more difficult to connect unless you're going to pay for it. And I am a person of, if this is social media, I shouldn't have to pay to be social.
Yep.
But that's me. I know a lot of people do and are very successful with paying Facebook. I just think that there's a better way.
Yep. I know exactly what you mean. Sure. So this has been really interesting. I think really helpful. Anything else you want to add, Shannon, that you think people should know about?
Well, the important thing I think people, if you're trying to balance, we could go back to the balancing business and life thing, because I really do think that's the most important thing that I help people with. Again, it's not about getting rich. A lot of people say, I have a business so I can get rich. It's really about the wealth you already have and how you want to invest in it, because you're going to be lying on your deathbed someday, and are you going to look back and go, gee, I made a lot of money back then? Or are you going to remember the relationships you've grown, the times you spent with your family and your loved ones, how you want your time? Your wealth is about your time, not about monetary things. Does money help? Absolutely. It sure does. But when it comes right down to it, you can it's not about a 6 or 7 or 8 figure income. It's about understanding what you can afford, creating a business to make that money, and then enjoying your life, because that is going to be ultimately the most important thing.
Yep, absolutely. I think so. So if somebody wants to connect with you, I know we've got your website, shannoncherry.com, so we'll link to that when I create my blog post. Anything else that you think we should?
That's the best way to connect with me. I usually tell people to take a look at my blog, which is there, because my personality is a little rough around the edges, let's say. I tend to tell it like it is. I don't mince words. I'm a straight shooter. So some of the things I say of like, I think social media stinks, or I don't have a favorite one because it's not good, or even I think some people, we were talking about list building, I think some of the things people do for list building is really stupid and will not help you grow your list. I say those things. They're probably what most people are thinking. I just sort of say them because someone has to. So if that is your style, if you like that approach, check out the blog, see what I'm about, and then make a decision if you want to get more resources, because I have a ton of free ones to give people.
Awesome. Okay, well, thanks for coming on and thanks for sharing.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Yep, you're welcome.